Are you taking notes? Because you're gonna want to write this down. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Adulting with Angel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm your host, Angel Mariah, and in today's video, we'll be talking about everything that you need to know to ace your interview. These are going to be questions that you need to have answered at the end of every single interview that you have. Now, this can be questions that you ask the interviewer or the recruiter, or these are questions that you just take note of throughout the interview process that they might answer themselves. Either way, rapid fire 10 things that you need to be asking. Number 1, is this a new position or are you looking to fill a recently vacated role? This question lets you know if someone just recently quit this job or if the company is growing to include new employees. I like to just ask this question and see how the room reacts. Sometimes reactions speak a lot louder than words. People might be like, do I have to tell them about the person who just quit because we treated them horribly? You never know. Always ask it and let them answer. Be mindful of a few things: what the answer is, who answers the question, and kind of the energy in the room. Okay? Second question I like to ask. I love asking this question because it keeps the interviewer on their toes. What tasks would you need me to accomplish within the first 90 days of me starting this role? I like to ask this question because it lets me know exactly what they are looking for me to get started on. Is there time for onboarding? Is there time for on-the-job training? Or is this a role where they want somebody who's been doing this job to just transition right into the role, take on huge projects, and honestly set them up for failure? The number one thing you want to make sure is that you are not setting yourself up for failure by asking this question to, the recruiter, to your interviewer. It lets you know, what is it that you're looking to have me do? What is it that I am going to do for you and your team when I join? Tip number 3, is there any on-the-job training associated with this role? For all of my new grads, I know we have imposter syndrome. The only person holding you back is yourself. And because we have imposter syndrome, it makes us feel like we're incompetent to do any role just because we might not have this or we might not have that. What we're gonna do instead is we're going to ask them if there's any on-the-job training. You might have the skills and resources and knowledge to do the role, and with a little bit of training, you might be a perfect candidate. Let the interviewer reject you. Do not reject yourself. Okay? Tip number 4, the number one thing you want to do in an interview is to make the people interviewing you, the interview panel, the recruiter, think back and reflect on everything that you just told them. A really big thing that happens in corporate is we have meetings before interviews, we have meetings after interviews. We might have had a rough call this morning, we might have a rough call after the interview. You never know what's going through their mind as they are interviewing you. Make them take a second to pause and replay the entire interview in your head to see if there's any good feedback. I should probably get to the question I was gonna mention. What suggestions do you have for me that would make me a stronger candidate if I were to apply for this role or another role within your department again? Another way to phrase this could be, after reviewing my resume and speaking with me, what experience would you recommend to make me a stronger candidate? I give you both of those because one, I don't know, I just feel like read the room and pick the question that works best for you. If you don't like the question, throw it out. I like the question. Personalize the questions. Make them tailored to you. Tip number 5, lucky 5. I think this question throws them off every time. What stood out in my application that led to this interview? This makes them have to reflect on your resume and what you've told them about yourself before this interaction that made them think that you were a good fit for the role. Now, this is something that I think is important to kind of reflect on, because when you are interviewing for a role, they see hundreds of resumes, and some people, I know, I'm gonna put myself out there and admit, I've applied for jobs that have instantly rejected my resume. I know it was the AI bot, but it's fine. Even when people review resumes, some people get pushed through, some people don't. Ask them, out of the thousands of candidates, what about you stood out the most? You're gonna wanna know. It'll help you with the next interview if you don't get this role, I'm promising you. Number 6, what growth opportunities are presented with this role? Room for growth. You wanna know, if I start in this role, where can this company take me? Now, I chose my company for reasons like this. I know I'm starting here, but I know there are so many opportunities for me to work my way up and get my bag, and you should be looking for that too. You don't want to go into a role where, well, you can start in this role and maybe something might open up. Absolutely not. I want to know what your company is providing me with my future. If I am willing to invest my time in your company, what is your company providing in response? With the layoffs of 2023, 2022, 2021 even, if we've learned anything, it's that companies do not care about us. We are just numbers. You are just a number. You are just on the payroll. And at the end of the day, they're gonna do what works best for them. So you need to do what works best for you and see what the opportunities are. I'm just gonna be honest. This also helps with job hopping. I don't personally recommend job hopping. I know it's like a thing. People are getting fired left and right. I say stick where you know the money's gonna come in. I'm an essential worker. I like to be an essential worker because I like to have an essential worker paycheck every 2 weeks. Not in tech. Living just fine. Tip number 7. Is it lucky 5 or lucky 7? I like 7. What is the next step in the interview process? If someone is asking you what questions you have, when should I expect to hear from you? Because it lets you know, okay, they told me they were gonna get back to me in 2 weeks. They told me they were gonna get back to me Monday at 5 o'clock. They told me. It gives you something to kind of like rationalize and think about and have. Especially when we're desperate for a job, a week feels like 6 months and a day feels like 6 years. It's the truth. Tip number 8. I like this tip. It goes both ways. Now, this is something that I like to feel out rather than just asking blatantly to the audience, but what is your management style? Ask questions about, you know, how do you feel about remote work? How do you feel about a hybrid job situation? Ask the questions that you want to know to kind of read the room and see what they're going to say. Because you can easily pick up on management styles like in an interview, especially if it's like the whole team is interviewing you and you notice that only the manager is willing to speak, like especially speak up when you ask questions. It's giving a red flag. So be mindful that I was actually asked that question in my last interview, and it was basically along the lines of what management style do you work best under? And I was like, listen, you do you, I do me. We talk once a week and we get the job done. And my boss and I, 2 peas in a pod. Tip number 9. This is a question that I feel like you guys should all be asking because everybody wants to work remote. I don't want to work remote. I'm cool going into the office. I like my office, I like my cubicle, I like designing it. I actually don't have a cubicle, I have a door. But anyway, is this position forecasted to be on-site or remote? Ask the question. Don't sit around and think, oh, well, they said it was gonna be remote, so this should be remote. If they don't say point blank, this is a 100% remote position, this is a 25% remote, this is a hybrid role, ask the question. You need to have the answer. Tip number 10, this is my favorite. This should probably have been tip number 1, but we left it for 10 because save the best for last. What is the current size of your team? And what type of support is available for me in this role? Guys, ask them. Ask people for what resources are available to you. Knowing the size of the team helps because it lets you know, okay, we're hiring this role. It's a new role. There's 3 of us. We're looking for a 4th person. Your role is going to be this, this, and that. We provide support to each other in these ways. We have a monthly meeting. We have a weekly meeting. We have a daily call, whatever. Ask. I suggest you ask this whether you need the support or not, because if someone tells you in the interview, this is what's available to you, and every single interview that you have lets you know your support system, it makes it easier to decide what job you want to be on. Do I want to work for the company that's giving me no support and maybe 1 coworker, or do I want a nice team that gets along well? That's the end of the top 10 tips I have, but I just want to just run my mouth a little bit more because why not? Read the room, feel the energy, see how people interact with each other. Make sure you're picking what's best for your future, what's best for you, your family, your salary, everything. These are just gonna be some spitfire questions that I have from when I used to interview from my notes on my computer. What are the daily job tasks within this role? I think that's a great question to ask. Lets you know what you're getting yourself into that might be outside the job description, because again, companies lie and sometimes the job description is not the truth. How do my qualifications fit this role? Basically, why do you think I'm qualified? What about me makes you think I can do this job? Ask. Do you have any hesitations or doubts about my qualifications? Ask them. Well, we were looking for someone with a background in sales, but we don't see anything on your resume. Oh, well, because I'm transitioning from sales into HR, I actually didn't put any sales on my resume, but I actually have 5 years of experience doing da-da-da-da-da-da. I love interviewing. I'm actually kind of sad because I love my boss, I love my job, and I doubt I'll be interviewing anytime soon, but interviewing was just kind of like main character moment. That's a wrap. Thank you again for supporting me and my passion project through this channel. I am actually super impressed that I made it through the entire month of January posting as I said I was gonna post. New Year's resolution is looking up. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, if you have any feedback for me, leave it in the description box below. If you have any advice for others who are in a similar situation looking for a job, interviewing soon, leave some advice for them in the description box below. I always leave additional advice in the description box that I usually forget when I'm filming but remember when I'm editing, so always check there for additional information. And what else? Oh yes, and as always, if you have the means, please donate to Make-A-Wish Foundation in honor of my late friend Nyla. And I will see you guys next week with a new series, new topics, and a new video. Bye y'all.